I'm joined this morning by one of our admission counselors, Emily Turcott.
Good
Hello,
morning.
Emily. And Emily will be running all of our chat box questions. So if you do have a question for our two students today, please message them to Emily and she will ask them. But without further ado, we have two wonderful students on our session this morning, both in the School of Health Sciences, Bella Howells and Becky Heath. And why don't you both start? Maybe we'll start with Becky there. If you just want to introduce yourself, what program you're in, what class you're in, where you're coming from.
All right. My name is Becky. I'm a junior at Regis, so I'm class of 2021. I'm in the nuclear medicine program, and I'm Zooming you guys from Pembroke, Massachusetts today. This is on the South Shore.
Hi guys, I'm Bella, and I'm in a bit of a weird situation. So I graduated technically in the fall of 2019, so I'm still class of 2020, I got my degree in public health, and I'm staying at Regis getting my master's in health administration. So I'm now a grad student at Regis. And I'm Zooming you guys from beautiful Cape Cod, Sandwich, Massachusetts.
There you go. Great. Thank you both. So if you just want to start off by talking a little bit about your experience in the School of Health Sciences, of course, specific to your major, and then a little bit about, like, more generally, how has your experience kind of shaped up in the School of Health Sciences? And Bella, if you want to start on this one.
Sure. So with being in the School of Health Sciences, I've been able to take like different science courses that pertain to my major. So being in a public health major, I've taken classes that are obviously towards my major that are classes are like health and society, health and the environment, but then I've also taken like your general science classes like microbiology, anatomy, and physiology, because you have to have that science background. But then I've also had a bunch of different other experiences. I've also been able to be a part of a research project that was funded by Regis College. And so my name's going to be published on a research project, which is really cool. And I've also been able to, through my other classes, I've also been able to gain connections through people that are actually in the different department, like in the State Department of Public Health, and also with someone in the federal, like the government Department of Public Health. So I've had those awesome connections that I've gained through my classes. And I've also just, it's just a really great thing, because being a public health student, and we're currently in the middle of a public health pandemic, it's weird because nobody really knew what public health was until we're currently in the middle of a crisis. Even my parents didn't know what public health was until I majored in it in school. And it was just cool because then they started realizing, oh, this is public health. This is technically public health. This is technically public health. And so then they started realizing just how much of an impact my major made on the entire world, basically. And since we're currently in the middle of this crisis, I had the opportunity to volunteer with any local health departments and kind of volunteer my services where it's needed. If I wanted to do like any administrative work, if I wanted to help with any epidemiology work or anything like that. So it's just a different thing that we've had the opportunity to do. Being a public health student at Regis, we've had different opportunities within like our grasp because of not only the things that are happening in the world, but also just things that we've had connections to.
Great. And Becky, if you want to talk a little bit about your experience specifically in the nuclear medicine department in the School of Health Sciences.
Yeah, so I have had sort of a similar experience to Bella. It's cool because we take a lot of science classes before we even really touch on anything related specifically to nuke med. So a lot of chem classes, physics classes, bio, anatomy, and phys. So it's cool to get to touch on like other subjects, and you meet people with like outside of your major, but you also get the chance to like really bond with the people in your specific major, which for me has been great. There are only 7 of us, so we have formed quite the little tight-knit group. But I think that's my favorite thing so far about the nuclear medicine program is, like, yes, it's small, but it's honestly a really good thing because what we're doing is really hard. But to be able to build one-on-one relationships with all of our professors, but especially our nuke med professor and our advisors there, it's been a really great thing, mostly because now that we're coming up on hopefully getting to go out to clinicals this summer for the first time, our professors really know us, and so they are able to place us in a clinical site for our first time out that they really think we're going to thrive in, because they know our personalities, they know our learning styles, they know who we work really well with within our group and who we, would maybe not work quite as well with. And so they're able to pair us with not only a good site with a good pace for us, but also with people who run those sites that maybe would do really well with our personalities as well. So for me, I'm super excited. I'm supposed to be heading out to the to Brigham and Women's in Boston for my first clinical rotation, which is super exciting for me. But everybody is that has gotten their placement so far has been really pleased with it and are really excited because they think they're going to fit well. So I honestly, this like small aspect of not just the School of Health Sciences or just my program, but Regis as a whole also has been really great for us.
Great.
Awesome. So could you guys just tell us a little bit about why you chose Regis and then specifically about why you chose your majors? Bella, you want to start?
Sure. So initially I wanted to go into the health administrative field because I wanted to do something in healthcare, but I didn't want to be the type of person that was hands-on because I have a fear of holding someone else's life in my own hands because that's just me. So I wanted to go more into the business side of things. And so that's why I decided to go into health administration. But unfortunately, most schools don't have that as an undergraduate. And my high school, they actually told me about Regis and they were like, they have a 4+1 program. And where if you go to school for an undergrad there and it links to their master's in health administration, you'll be done within 5 years. So they told me that like you can get your undergrad in public health and then you can go into your master's in health administration. So I initially was a little skeptical at first because I had never really heard about public health before. And then when I started looking into it more, I was very interested and I started taking classes. I found like a love for public health because I realized that that's something very interesting and there's so many different fields within public health that people don't really even know about. There's just so many different levels within it. And I just really grew to love it. And just not only choosing Regis, like they had like the best option for me because they were giving me that background in public health as well as giving me the master's in health administration that I wanted, and they're all doing it within 5 years, which was huge for me because that's not only a time saver but a money saver. And it was just really great. And then coming on campus, it was one of those big moments because it was like I did that drive and immediately like I felt like I was right at home. So that's just how it was for me. And it was just one of those, everything was perfect.
Awesome.
Sorry. So I had kind of an unconventional path to Regis. I was originally looking for schools to become an x-ray tech. It was something I wanted to do since I was in like 4th grade. But once I did a quick Google search, Regis came up as a school that I might be interested in. And I said, okay, let's just get started looking at some. It was the first school I went to. And immediately, just like what Bella said, as soon as I got on campus, I just felt like I was back home in a sense. I grew up in a really, really small town, a couple towns over from where I am now. Like my entire elementary school had less than 300 kids in it. So for me, I always knew that when I got to college, I would want more of a small town feel because I grew up having the one-on-one help and the access to that if I needed it, if I was ever struggling in anything academically. And I also love the feel of a small community. So I just felt really at home at Regis. And then the day I went, it just so happened that the speaker for the day was the former advisor and program director for the nuclear medicine program. He has since moved on, but we have a new fantastic advisor and program director. But when the guy was talking, I just fell in love with nuke med and decided X-ray tech was not what I wanted to do anymore. I wanted to do nuclear medicine. And in all honesty, at first I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It was a lot of uncertainty as to what it did, but I looked into it some more, and once I found out about all of the opportunities that you can use nuke med for and all the different subfields you can go into with it, I just knew that was what I wanted to do. So sort of like Bella, I did a quick search for where else had nuke med as a 4-year bachelor's degree, and there were 4 states and 4 schools in all of New England, and I said, no, I already know where I want to go. If that's the case, I'm going to Regis. So from sophomore year of high school, I was focused on nothing else except for getting into Regis and getting into nuke med. But it was the best decision I ever made. I was nervous because I put all my eggs in one basket, and if I ended up getting there and didn't like it as much as I thought I would, I had no backup plan. So I was lucky that it worked out, but I really shouldn't have had any doubts because it's home for everybody on campus. I really feel like it's just home.
Great. Thank you, guys. So I know in working with both of you, you're both very involved on campus, including with our tour guide program. But why don't you talk to the students a little bit about your experience, balancing different things, and also how did you start to get involved when you first started at Regis? If you want, Becky, if you want to start there.
Yeah, so my freshman year didn't really get too super involved. I kind of wanted to get my feet wet and see what was happening. The big thing that I got involved in was I did find a work study job down in the Res Life office. So that's been super cool for me to get more experience in just people skills, answering questions, and trying to help people out the best I can, because not only is it fun for me to be able to help out my peers, but to help out prospective students, as well as getting people skills to help me out in my future career. I always knew I wanted to be a Pride Guide, just because I went on so many tours at Regis, and every single Pride Guide I had was fantastic, but a few of them stuck out more than others, and I always knew I have this love for Regis and always have, so why not try and be able to spread that to other people and try and help people find where they're going to call home for the next 4 years. So my end of my freshman year, I applied to be a Pride Guide, and I got the position, and I've since become a coordinator for Pride Guides as well. So for me, getting involved with probably one of the best decisions I ever made. I've really found my niche, I guess, in helping other people out and leading other people and trying to help them out as best that I can. So it's been really fun for me. As far as balancing everything goes, I am hyper organized, which is not, the best option for everybody else. I have some friends who have tried the color coding and the colored pens and the big planner, and it's just not what works for them. So my biggest advice as far as balancing being involved on campus and all of your academics would honestly just to be find what works for you as far as organization or scheduling. And if you struggle with that or you don't know what that method is, always go up and chat with your academic advisor. They're there for 4 years. They're absolutely free, and they help you with everything from study skills to organization to balance to put all my different syllabi into one big grid. They're fantastic. So, but definitely get a jump start on that before it's too late, because it's harder to dig yourself out of a hole than it is to just get ahead of it. So definitely find what works for you and get the help if you need it.
And then for me, I knew when I was doing my first open house at Regis, I actually was talking to a former counselor, she was telling me about, like, she was like, when you decide if you want to come to Regis, she's like, you can always come to me, and if you want to apply to work in undergrad admin, you can always come to me and like you can apply. And so I did have that initial inkling, like I did want to work in undergrad admin. And then from there, I did eventually, and I had all these amazing tour guides at open house. I still remember their names because I ended up working with them. But I do have I had these amazing tour guides because they were so energetic and fun, and I just wanted to kind of resemble them in a way, because who doesn't want to be extroverted and have fun on tours? So I just wanted to do that, and I wanted to give that experience to any students that are coming on campus. So I knew immediately that I wanted to be a tour guide. So my freshman year, I applied and I became a tour guide. So I was a tour guide all 4 years. And then my junior year, I ended up becoming a coordinator, like Becky. And so Alex has been stuck with me for a couple of years now. But so it just gave me that leadership opportunity. And then I also ended up becoming an RA my senior year, well, my senior/grad year. So I ended up becoming an RA as well. So it's a resident assistant. So I was an RA for my students. And unfortunately, one of our semesters was cut short because of COVID. But it's okay. And I've also known my freshman year, I knew immediately that Regis, we have a huge dance company on campus, and it's all student run. And that was one of the huge things that drew me in, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so I was a dancer my entire life. So I wanted to continue dancing. So I joined the dance company my freshman year because I knew that was a way to get me involved and kind of to get me out of my shell, because I know I can be a little bit shy when I first come into a new place. So I thought that would be a good way to meet new people, meet new friends. And so I joined the dance company, and I did make some great friends through the dance company, and I was on there for 4 years, and it was a great thing. And I'm also the type of person where if I am doing multiple things, that's when I'm thriving. So if I'm doing, I was at one point I was working 2 jobs, an internship, also had the dance company, and one of the jobs was being a pride guide coordinator. So I was doing all those things, and I was still doing a full course load, which was like 7 classes. And that's when I was doing my best work. But like I said, that's just who I am. And I am the type of person where I thrive under pressure. And like Becky, you kind of have to figure out what's best for you. And I know for me, like personally, I had a whiteboard, like a very large whiteboard, like calendar like whiteboard that I would write everything out on. So that way I would write all my assignments out, and I would know everything, what's due when, and I would keep track of all my assignments that way. And so that way I would never lose track of things. But it was never a time during my 4 years of, I would never have a problem of handing us in assignments or late work. I would never really have that issue. Because I would always make time, and and if it came time like where schoolwork was becoming too much, I would always make sure that I would communicate with either like my work or internship, and well, mainly my work, because internship was also classwork. So I make sure to communicate with my work and be like, I need to take a day off because I need to focus on schoolwork. So it was just one of those things where you just have to make sure you prioritize the things that really matter.
Awesome. So we do have a couple questions in the chat, but before we get to those, just real quick, could you guys just discuss your internships that you've had through your majors?
Sure. I know I've had, for public health, we had to do required 2 internships, and I did my internships at a company called Health Drive, and they provide integrated healthcare to seniors that live in assisted living homes. And it's different forms of healthcare. So it's like podiatry, audiology, dentistry, behavioral health, and optometry. And so I was working with the vice president of compliance. And so I did a lot of, I created the trainings for all of the staff in the entire company, as well as the new physicians that were coming in. I would create trainings and things like that, as well as conduct the trainings. What else did I do? I just did like some administrative things, as well as just, I just did a lot in regards to compliance. And the reason why I really stuck with Health Drive is because I knew eventually along the line I wanted to go into law work. And so doing the work with compliance, she gave me that legal side of healthcare, and she really showed me about that. And she also gave me the opportunity to draft, and she gave me the opportunity to draft some policies for the company. And actually 2 of the policies that I drafted actually were approved, and they're now official policies for the company. So.
Wow, awesome. And Becky, we know that you haven't quite started your internship, but if you just want to quickly tell us about what you're going to be doing, and what that kind of looks like for nuclear medicine students.
Yeah, definitely. So for nuclear medicine students, we don't start our clinicals until the summer right after our junior year. So I am, fingers crossed, headed out to clinical at the Brigham in May for our first rotation. A lot of people don't know why that happens. So basically, because we have 2 full years, your freshman and sophomore year are both full of all prerequisite classes for sciences and everything else, to give you a good baseline for when you hit the ground running with all of your nuclear medicine specific classes in your junior year. We simply don't know enough about nuke med to go out into clinical any earlier than the summer after junior year. It's not something similar to nursing where you can learn like one skill at a time and get signed off on it. You kind of have to know everything soup to nuts to be able to be of help in a nuke med department. So I personally am not bothered by the fact that we start in the summer. I would rather be super prepared than go out any earlier and feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Over the summer after junior year, you go 3 days a week. They are long days. I'm not gonna lie about it. I think right now I'm scheduled to the Brigham for like 7 to 7 for Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, but it's only for 12 weeks out of the summer. So, well, it's supposed to be. We're supposed to get the month of August off. For my current class, that could get a little wonky, but you go for 12 weeks, May through July, and then you get August off, which is great. But my biggest suggestion would be to keep that in mind, mostly for financial planning, because you do miss out on 3 days a week that you could potentially be working at a summer job. Once we get back to campus in the fall for our senior year, we hit the ground running, and in September we start clinicals, shorter days, but we're there 4 days a week. So we're at clinical Tuesday through Friday at a different site than you were at in the summer. We rotate through roughly 3 or 4 different sites depending on where you end up going. There are a couple that you can request to go to that you only go to for 2-week time spans instead of like 4 or 6 weeks, just because of the nature of the job at those sites. But you are there all senior year, 4 weeks. So, 4 days a week. So both fall and spring semester. And then on Mondays, you have, I believe, 2 classes that you take in the morning, and you'll have your Monday afternoons free. But it is a lot because we start a lot later. So I know like your senior nursing students are only gone a couple days a week for their clinicals, but that's because by the time they get to senior year, they're almost done. So for us, it's a little bit more grueling in the senior year aspect, but it's going to be totally worth it. I cannot wait to get out and go. So
Great.
Great so far.
All right, so do you want to start with some of the questions that I have coming in?
Let's go for it.
Sure. So this one looks like it's for Becky. So what opportunities does nuclear medicine have in the job market? And could you talk a little bit about job opportunities after graduation?
Yeah, definitely. So nuclear medicine has so many different directions you can take it. You could break it up by body system if you wanted to and specialize in nuclear cardiology, or you could specialize in PET, which is a special form of nuclear medicine that deals a lot with tumor imaging and cancer scanning. Or you could go in the direction of administering like chemotherapy and iodine therapy for different kinds of cancers. Or you could just be a general nuke med tech. So for me, when I graduate, my plan is to be a general nuclear medicine technologist, but in pediatrics. So pediatrics would be my specialty. It's definitely not for everyone, because you have to remember a lot of times these patients that you're seeing, pediatric or adult, a lot of times you're going to find something bad. And it could be something that is going to give them a couple weeks to live, a couple years, or hopefully you find nothing, or it's just a matter of like you have acid reflux, you're going to be fine. But when you're thinking about which direction you want to go, it's definitely something to keep in mind that a lot of times you're going to be dealing with really, really sick patients. But you can go into a more research side of it as well if you wanted to. I know at Regis we have a 4+1 for a master's in clinical research, I believe, right? That's still there. So for me, I originally had thought that I wanted to get my 4-year bachelor's in nuclear medicine and then do my 1 year of graduate work like Bella and get my master's in clinical research with a concentration in nuke med. Once I started doing more research projects in college, I decided that was not the route for me, and I would much rather be more hands-on. But it is an option. If research is something that you're really interested in, you can always go that route. The good news is, even if you want to be a more hands-on technologist, you can always cross the bridge back and forth between research and being a hands-on tech. All of your departments will be for that. Because it's such a new and up and coming field, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Every single day in class, my professor is telling us about this new thing that they do now that they didn't do like 5 years ago. So it's really cool. It's a great field to be in. It's always growing and evolving. So it's not going to go anywhere. Pretty much anything you would want to do with nuke med, you can find a way to do it.
Awesome. Thank you. So the next question is, could you provide some more information about the sports management program?
I can do a little bit about that one. So a little bit about the sports management program. It falls under our like health and nutrition studies like umbrella. So that includes nutrition, sports management, exercise science, and kind of like more of the sports medicine type fields. That program is going to be very hands-on, similar to these other programs, especially what Becky's talking about with nuclear medicine. You're going to get some opportunities to do some exercise science, but also some sports management like business classes and marketing classes as well. It's kind of a interdisciplinary type, and you can really pick your track, or if you want to do a sports management with the exercise science and go towards like the athletic training, or if you want to do sports management more as a business side of things, you can do it with a business major or double major minor. So that program is very hands-on. I know that a lot of those classes even like include some things that are going on in the weight room, whether it's like some students who are writing like training programs for clients or running exercise classes or anything like that. So there is some opportunities there. And then fairly new to Regis is along the lines of this 4+1 program is our communication program has a sports communication track. So if you want to do more of the business side, you can do the sports management with the sports communication 4+1 program. So that is another option as well. And if anybody was on our call yesterday with the athletics department is pretty open to taking on interns when it comes to like sports media or information, like with data, just like the statistics department for sports. So there's lots of opportunities to kind of take that any different direction. If you do email me, Emily put my email in the chat box. We can send you the course list for any program that you're interested in. and you can kind of take a look at what classes you might be taking, whether it's sports management or something else.
Awesome. And then the last question I have, how early are you able to start your internships and where do you go to get them?
So for Nuke Med, we get placed places, so we don't have to worry about finding them. Same goes for sonography and nursing. We just get placed and we get told this is where you're going and you go there. The timeline, like I said, varies between the programs. For us, it's the summer after junior year. I believe sonography goes in the spring of their junior year is when they start.
And then for me, I know technically for public health, you are supposed to do it your senior year. Since I was graduating a semester early, I did mine my last semester of junior year, and then, is that right? Which was technically like my first semester of senior year. So it's like spring and then a fall semester. So that's how mine went. So everybody, it's like, it just kind of depends. Because for me, like you have to take like an internship class, and those are typically only open to seniors. So most of the time I feel like that's how it was for my program, at least. So so for me, it was during senior year.
If you need help finding a place to go for your internships too, like for something that you don't get a clinical placement for, we do have the Center for Career and Internship Placement on campus. Susan Kennedy runs that. She can help you find an internship in your field that is compliant with your program. So if you are struggling to find a place, go visit her, and she works magic, I swear. She'll find you somewhere to go.
She also can just help you build your resume too. She's just really a great asset to have.
Right. And just to answer there looks like there's a question about like crew as a sport. We do not offer crew as a sport. We are close, right in like the Auburndale Newton area. It's only a couple miles from campus. There is a place that you can like rent crew equipment and use kind of like the extension of the Charles River there. But we do not have it as an official sport at Regis. Was there any other?
One more?
Yeah. We have time for probably one more, just knowing that we're close to, we're gone over a few minutes, but yeah, one more.
Okay. So are there jobs that you can get on campus? And if so, can the money that you make from them be put towards tuition and fees? Do you guys?
Yeah. I can answer that. I can answer that. And then, Becky and Bella, if you want to talk about your experience working, you can get jobs on campus. Some jobs are work study jobs. So they come in you would see if you got work study in your financial aid package. And then there are some jobs that are institutional aids. So you don't need work study in your financial aid package to be able to get them. So for example, both Becky and Bella mentioned their tour guides. Our tour guides are not work study positions, so anybody can apply for those, and then you can work in that and get paid for that. And that does not require anybody to have work study. But some jobs on campus, like if you're answering the front phones for admission and doing more of like the administrative work for the admission office, that is federal work study. So there's a combination of both. And I don't know if you two want to talk, maybe Becky, if you want to start a little bit about what you do on campus.
Yeah, so like I said before, my freshman year, I really jumped on it and wanted to get my federal work study job nailed down so that I was bringing in income. So I decided to apply and work for the Office of Residence Life, which is I was going to say downstairs, but we're not on campus. That doesn't help. But it's in the student union building. And they handle everything from roommate selection, housing selection. My dorm room's really hot. My roommate is being mean. Everything from A to Z that you could possibly think of. that has anything to do with living on campus, that is where you would go. So for me, I absolutely love my job. Yes, we get some kind of crazy calls. I work at the front desk of the Office of Residence Life, so I'm kind of the first line of defense. If there's a question or a problem that comes through the door that I am able to help, or questions on the phone that I can answer, I will take them and direct people to, a different office where they would get better help from, or I can just straight up answer their questions. And if I can't, then I would send them back to meet with any of our professional residence life staff. It's a really great experience. I absolutely love it. It also helps me out a lot with being a tour guide, because we'll get a lot of questions about residence life things on tours, and for me to have the extra knowledge to be able to tell people what I know from working down in the office is great. But it's also super satisfying to help out a confused parent or a nervous incoming student for the fall. Just be able to tell them this is what you can bring, this is what you can't bring, this is how this process goes, and this is how you'll pick roommates. It's an awesome experience. So if you do have a chance to get involved with any kind of office on campus as a work study, I would highly recommend it. It's a great time. I also obviously am a little bit biased. I recommend being a tour guide as well. It's a lot of fun, honestly. We have a great time, but more than that, it's really satisfying to get to be part of somebody's experience in picking a school that you go to. I only ever toured Regis, so I don't really have firsthand experience, but I know when my brother was looking at schools, he went to a lot of different ones, and a lot of times he came home and was like, I'm not going there, that tour was awful. So to be able to know that you could totally make somebody's experience and looking for a school is really satisfying, and they remember you. I've been out and about here at home, and people have been like, oh my gosh, you're Becky, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you toured 3 months ago. I'm like, oh, okay. And no, you don't remember everybody, but it's awesome to know that they remember you. And a lot of times they'll be like, oh, I'm definitely applying there because your tour was great, or I went for a tour after yours and it convinced me for sure that's where I want to go. So I definitely recommend tour guide, or getting involved with the work study is fantastic.
And one thing I didn't answer the second part of that question, I realized once Becky got started. As far as how you get paid for your jobs on campus, you do still receive a check. So Becky and Bella get a check, and then you can decide what to do to that. So it doesn't go directly towards your tuition bill. You can, some students will use it for books, some students will use it to pay their bill a little bit, and some students will just use it as extra spending money, so you don't have to ask, anybody in your family for any money when you're on campus. So it's not automatic towards your tuition or room and board, but there is that option. You can go in and use it towards that if you want to later. Great.
And just from my experience, I didn't have a work study option. So any jobs that I've had on campus, they've either been for either tour guide. So I've been just receiving checks, just that were not, it wasn't a federally funded a job. So it was just money that I would either put in my bank account. I said my internet connection was unstable. Sorry. So it was just saying that it was just money that I would be putting towards savings that I could use for next year's tuition. It was just money that I would save. And then for my RA position that I have on campus, that's a job that I do have. And when you get that position, you automatically get paid, and they pay for your room. And so they take that portion of your bill and they pay for that portion of your bill, and then you also get a stipend on top of that. So like I said, it just pays for your room, but it doesn't pay for your board.
Great. Thank you both. And one thing I'll say is tomorrow we do have a session where it's going to be a student question and answer. It's at 1 o'clock tomorrow until 2 o'clock. You can always pop on whenever you want to. Both Becky and Bella will be at that session. So if you do have further questions for them, please register for that. It's tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and you can register for it the same way you did for this one. Because if you do, I know we're running up on time. We're a little bit over, so I want to be conscious of that. But tomorrow we have a longer session, 1 hour. Both of them will be on that again, and they will answer any of your specific health science questions or your general questions about the school as well. But that being said, I want to thank you all for coming this morning. And of course, thank you to Bella and Becky, who were great and had some great insight. If you do have any questions, you can always email myself or email Emily. And also, Becky is going to put her email in the chat as well. So if you have any questions, you can always email Becky if you can't make it to the session tomorrow. But thank you all for coming, and please let us know if you do have any other questions moving forward. Thanks.